What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be having a look at the new Roze skin for Season 3, since in the patch notes, Raven mentioned that they've adjusted Roze in order to improve the operator's readability/visibility where sources of light are available. And that sounds a little bit confusing, and just taking a look at the Roze skin in the menu, it looks to be exactly the same. Nothing's really changed here. It doesn't appear they've added any colors or areas of contrast to the character model itself. And since the patch notes mention where sources of light are available, it seems like this was more of a global lighting fix rather than a specific adjustment to Roze's Rook skin. So let's have a look at the before and after in the game itself, keeping in mind that we are on a new map. However, I did go to the same building, which still exists in Promenade, and we're in a relatively similar lighting scenario, although it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison because the whole map changed. Keep in mind with this, when I made my first Roze video talking about the Roze skin and how I feel it could use a rework of some sort, I had a lot of people saying just turn your brightness up, or just use NVIDIA filters, which you can't use on console, which I do play on console. So that part's out of the question, but as far as just turning the brightness up, I wanted to perform these tests when calibrating the brightness the way the game intends for you to calibrate the brightness. And while YouTube's compression and processing might change this a little bit, this is what the game looks like on a properly calibrated monitor when also using the recommended brightness setting in-game. So first up, let's have a look at inside this fire hall on the second floor when hiding in the bush. So this isn't purely about lighting at this point, it's also concealment within that bush. We can see pre-patch, it would take a little bit of time for you to recognize that that is an enemy, but if you look carefully, of course, you can see the Roze skin. Post-patch, even though the lighting looks to be a little bit brighter and better in this room, I actually find it harder to see the Roze skin in this scenario. However, I do feel that's primarily down to the concealment from the plant itself and not so much the lighting, so not a perfect example, but I did want to show that you can blend in very well still with the Roze skin in certain areas and certain situations. Now let's have a look at another big problem spot, at least pre-patch this is a big problem spot, and that is coming into the bottom floor of any one of these buildings when the doors are closed. And you can see here there's a huge shadowy area, and it's very difficult to catch that Roze skin, at least until you get closer to the Roze skin, and then the lighting will adjust so then you can see the Roze skin clearly. Post-patch, I did have to use the building next to the original building in the testing. That's why the stairs are flipped here. And that's just because the lighting in the building that I previously tested is actually much better in that exact same situation. So this better matches the lighting scenario here. And as you can see, we still have a very clear issue here where that Roze skin is practically invisible until you actually approach her. Next up, coming up the stairs, if we've got a Roze skin either laying down or crouching at the top of the stairs, this is another area that was considered a problem area for Roze skins. Pre-patch, you can actually see the Roze skin decently clearly on this particular stairwell, whereas post-patch, that Roze skin is very difficult to see at first, but then, like with the previous example, as you get closer, then she becomes more illuminated and more clearly visible. Next up, if the Roze skin is laying at the top of these stairs right here in that shadowy area, pre-patch, she was very difficult to see. Even if that gun wasn't in the way there, she's very difficult to see in that shadowy area, and you probably wouldn't pick her up at first glance. And post-patch, this is where I think we can really start to see the changes they've made to Roze. It really looks like the character model is catching a bit more light than pre-patch, and almost has a bit of a glow to it. It appears to be far more of a gray rather than a straight up black, and therefore I would say this is actually quite a big improvement. But finally, I've got one last comparison for you guys, and that is if you're dropping in from the roof here, and the enemy is standing in that dark shadowy corner. And pre-patch, it does take a little bit of time for the lighting to adjust once you drop in before you can really clearly see that Roze skin. And post-patch, it doesn't really look a whole lot different, honestly. Like, if anything, it's a bit more difficult to see the Roze skin due to the backdrop, as well as a little bit of a particle effect or a smoke or dust effect that is right below the light there. So really not much of an improvement in this area as far as I can tell. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for the comparison portion of this video. Overall, it does seem like they made a bit of a change to how the character model itself catches light when light is available, which is what they mentioned in their patch notes. It says when a light source is available. However, it doesn't really seem to solve the issue of Roze skins in a completely darkened area where there just isn't any light to be found. There are definitely still going to be several situations you run into in key areas of the map where it's going to take you a lot longer to recognize a Roze skin compared to pretty much any other operator out there. Now, having said this, with the Season 3 version of Verdansk, I've noticed that there are fewer areas that are quite as dark and shadowy as the previous version of Verdansk. They're definitely still there, as you saw in this video. In some areas, there's definitely some really bad shadows. But I've noticed far fewer situations so far where I'm running into Roze skins and not properly seeing them, or taking a long time for me to recognize that that is an actual enemy player. So I think the map and lighting on the map has improved nicely, but the Roze skin itself, not so much. I think there are still some problem areas with this, and I definitely wouldn't be opposed to seeing a bit more done to the Roze skin, but that's just my opinion. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about the Roze skin in Season 3 of Warzone so far? Do you still think it's an issue? Do you think it is too dark and something else needs to be done? Or do you think it's fine as it is now? Just let me know those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.